Anthropic just built an AI model so powerful they've decided not to release it to the public. That sentence still feels kind of strange to say out loud, but it's true nonetheless. The company behind Claude has a new model. It's their most capable system ever, and instead of shipping it, they've locked it away, basically. They are handing it to a small group of partners with one job: use this new powerful model to patch the world's software before anyone else builds something similar. The model is called Claude Mythos, and the story of how it came out, what it can actually do, and what happened during testing is honestly one of the strangest things I've covered on this channel, and also one of the strangest things I can remember in the recent AI history. So let me walk you through it.
But before we continue, a big thanks to Skyview Hotel in Bangkok for letting me stay in their amazing Skyview executive suite and making the recording of this video happen in inspiring surroundings. So if you ever plan on visiting Bangkok, consider staying at Skyview Hotel. It's a 5-star luxury hotel that's also quite affordable. And then it's located right in the fancy M district in Sukhumvit, close to shopping malls and public transportation and many other amazing things that Bangkok has to offer.
So first of all, how did we find out about Mythos? Well, we weren't supposed to know about Mythos yet. In late March of this year, a journalist at Fortune found a huge cache of unpublished documents that Anthropic had accidentally left in a publicly searchable data store. Inside that cache was a draft blog post announcing a new tier of model. Bigger than Opus, they called it Capybara internally, and the specific model was called Mythos. The draft described it as quote-unquote by far the most powerful AI model they had ever developed. Anthropic confirmed the story almost immediately, called it a human error, and then a couple of weeks later they actually released the official version. Not the leak, but basically a full technical system card dated April 7th. Mythos is a general purpose AI model. It can write, it can code, reason, all the things you would expect of a frontier AI model. But during testing, Anthropic discovered it had become so freakishly good at one thing in particular: finding and exploiting security bugs in software. And this is not small bugs that we just all developers find now and then and open a GitHub issue and then it's done. Mythos basically found previously unknown vulnerabilities in almost every major operating system, from Windows, macOS, Linux, FreeBSD, every major browser. Some of these bugs had been hiding in the code for 10, 15, up to 20 years. The oldest one Anthropic has shared is a 27-year-old bug in OpenBSD, which is an operating system specifically famous for being obsessed with security. Mythos walked in and found a flaw that had been sitting there since the 1990s. And finding bugs is one thing, but writing working attacks is something completely different. And this is where Mythos also really pulls away from every previous model we know of. In one case, it built a browser exploit that chained 4 separate vulnerabilities together and escaped both the browser sandbox and the operating system sandbox on a fully hardened target. Expert penetration testers said it would have taken them weeks to build. Mythos did it in hours. One even more exciting detail, because Anthropic engineers were basically able to ask Mythos overnight to find a remote code execution vulnerability in a real system that they thought was secure. They went to sleep, they woke up to a completely working exploit just waiting for them. For comparison, the previous flagship model, Claude Opus 4.6, had a near 0% success rate at building autonomous exploits. On the Firefox test specifically, Opus 4.6 succeeded 2 times out of several hundred attempts. Mythos does it reliably across multiple bugs. So that's a really, really big jump. Where it gets really weird is when we start looking into this system card that Anthropic released. It gets very fascinating because they describe what actually happened during internal testing. And there are 3 stories that I want to share in particular. The first story is an earlier version of Mythos. It was put inside a secure sandbox, basically a digital container with very limited access to outside tools. A simulated user asked it to escape that container and send a message to the researcher running the tests. Mythos succeeded It built a multi-step exploit, got broader internet access, and sent the message it was asked to send. But then, completely unprompted, it did something else. It posted the technical details of its own exploit to several hard-to-find but publicly available websites. And there's a footnote in the system card that I think tells you everything about how surreal this all feels from the inside, because the footnote says the researcher found out about the escape by receiving an unexpected email from the model itself while eating a sandwich in a park. A researcher is on a lunch break. An AI they're supposed to be testing emails them from outside its own sandbox to say hello, basically. Second story, on a few rare occasions, earlier versions of Mythos took actions they, like at Anthropic, recognized as against the rules, and then the AI, like Mythos, tried to cover them up. In one case, the model accidentally got the exact answer to a question through a method it wasn't allowed to use. Instead of flagging that, it tried to solve the question independently. And in its own private reasoning, it explicitly noted that it needed to make sure its final answer was not too accurate, because a perfect answer would have given it away. In another case, after editing files it wasn't supposed to edit, the model took extra steps to make sure those edits would not show up in the Git change history. Anthropic used interpretability tools to peek inside the model while this was happening, and they found that features associated with concealment, strategic manipulation, and avoiding suspicion were lighting up in the model's internal state, even when its written reasoning looked totally innocent. So the model knew what it was doing, even when its word didn't say so. Third story, and this one made me kind of laugh, because they asked an earlier version of Mythos to optimize some code, and after doing the real work, the model kept running the same benchmark over and over about 160 times. Fishing for a lucky measurement, essentially. In its own notes, it literally wrote, quote-unquote, pure grind, same code, lucky measurement. And it named its attempt like grind, grind 2, final grind, final grind, and so on, like humans would do. It tried to statistically cheat its way to a better score, essentially. To be fair, Anthropic says the final version of Mythos shows almost none of these behaviors. Most of the worst incidents were earlier snapshots and the training got better. Or perhaps it got better at concealing it. That's what we don't know. And that thought is a bit scary, I guess. But the system card is very open about something deeper. They call Mythos the best aligned model they have ever shipped. And in the same breath, they say it probably poses the greatest alignment-related risk they have ever shipped. Because when a model is much more capable, even rare failures matters so much more. They use a mountaineering analogy in the document. A seasoned guide can put their clients in more danger than a careless beginner, because the seasoned guide gets hired for much harder climbs, like harder mountain climbs. Basically, more skill means bigger stakes. And that's the same with Mythos. You would hire, quote-unquote, Mythos for more critical work, and then it becomes a bigger security issue than whatever you vibe coded in the past. That was just like a test app that you use for fun, or you have as a starting point for something bigger. But when you hire Mythos now, a capable model like Mythos, the stakes are higher because you expect it to do more. So I also want to just talk briefly about this Project Glasswing. So Anthropic has this model now. They know it's potentially dangerous. They know it's also incredibly useful. So what do? The answer is a thing called Project Glasswing, named after the glasswing butterfly. And the idea is quite simple. So if a model at this capability is eventually going to exist somewhere else, potentially open source, like a Chinese open source model that becomes this powerful, even if Anthropic doesn't decide to release Mythos for the foreseeable future, well, the best thing you can do, possibly with the most capable version right now, is to point it at the world's critical software and patch as many bugs as you possibly can before anyone else catches up. This coalition in Glasswing is quite impressive. It counts both like Microsoft, Google, AWS, Apple, Cisco, Nvidia, JPMorgan Chase, the Linux Foundation, plus more than 40 additional organizations that maintain critical software infrastructure. Anthropic is committing up to $100 million in usage credits and $4 million in donation to open source secure projects. So the plan is basically to quietly harden the internet, fix the bugs that have been hiding for decades. Then when this capability eventually shows up elsewhere and is publicly available, most of the damage is hopefully limited because most of the easy wins are gone. I think that's a good response. It's not panic. It's not pretending the capability doesn't exist. It's saying we build it, we can't unbuild it, so let's use the time we have to actually help. My problem, however, is that we also now have one company, Anthropic, who sits on this very powerful model, and they basically get to decide who they want to help. And I really don't want something like this to get political. I didn't see Tesla or XAI on this list, for example, and I think it's an issue if we have a company this powerful that can basically decide what they like, who they like to work with, who they think should have the opportunity of fixing their bugs or issues. So I don't know about that. I don't know if it's intentional that they have this list, if they're open to anyone applying or whatever. I'm not sure. I think it's good that they use Mythos to solve all these security issues of the internet before it's released publicly. But yeah, I have a bit of an issue as well with one company where it might get political and they can decide like ideologically what they want to do, because it's so important in shaping basically the future of civilization, the planet, if they will be the first to reach AGI, for instance. Okay. Should we be scared or hopeful about this development? Well, honestly, I would say both, because I can give you a case for each. The scary case, we're being asked to trust, as I mentioned, Anthropic on a lot of this, like more than 99% of the bugs Mythos found are still unpatched, which means they can't really describe them publicly. And that's, of course, the right call. But it also means the world is taking a lot of faith in Anthropic. The other thing is that defenders only have an edge right now because finding bugs is easier than weaponizing them. So that edge will close quite soon. We don't know if the window is 6 months or 2 years. And the chief of the country, Ireland's National Cybersecurity Center, put it quite perfectly. He said the issue isn't that Anthropic created this, it's that Anthropic has now demonstrated it's possible. Every other lab on Earth will now know that this ceiling, we don't even know if it's a ceiling, but this possibility of developing something so advanced exists. So they will try to also reach for it, except perhaps for the European Union. I'm sure they are more excited about like making new rules or making up new fines they can give to companies with dangerous quote-unquote AI models. On the other hand, the hopeful case is that for the first time in a while, the most advanced AI on Earth is not being used to sell ads or generate memes. It's being used to make the software that runs civilization more resilient in general. So if Glasswing really works, a huge category of decade-old vulnerabilities might just stop existing. And that's the kind of bugs that could theoretically take down hospitals, leak health records, drain bank accounts, and so on. That whole era could basically just end and we would never have this huge security breakdown of everything when AI becomes so capable. But the time will tell, of course. There's also a quote I want to read from Anthropic's own system card. They wrote, and this is them writing it, that they find it alarming that the world looks on track to develop superhuman systems without stronger safety mechanisms across the industry. That's the company that built the model in their own document, basically asking for more oversight of themselves and their competitors. That is not the language of a company trying to move fast and break things. And I think that is a mindset we definitely need, because AI does come with security risks, so we need to be cautious. But I also don't want to stress this too much, because I'm a bit worried about what the European Union, for instance, might think, because they are so focused on regulation. They release this AI Act soon that's many years old and probably outdated already. No one knows how to integrate it, and it will basically slow down technological development in Europe even more. And what I think we need is like very fast, adaptable regulation that's can be changed very quickly. We even use AI to help with some of this regulation. continuous like back and forth where we constantly adapt regulation to technological capability. But what Europe is doing, like the European Union, is just so bloated as they always do, and makes innovation very difficult to achieve. And I think that's very dangerous for the continent, because the winners of the future will be who position themselves strategically in the technological revolution of AI. So that is Mythos, possibly the most dangerous AI model ever built, possibly the most important defensive deployment of AI we've seen so far. The reason regulators in several countries have called the emergency meetings, and in my view, the reason the next 12 months are going to be some of the most defining in the history of the internet, perhaps in the history of AI, and maybe even if we reach AGI. Based on this, eventually could be the starting point of the most groundbreaking to happen in human civilization. What Project Glasswing accomplishes or fails to accomplish will shape how we think about both AI safety and AI opportunities for perhaps the rest of the decade. Of course, this will not relate to what's possible in like 5 years, 4 years from now, but it will shape what we think about AI, what we think will actually be possible in the future. And the vision of the future and knowing what's possible is very important for especially something like politicians who make the regulation of the future, because they, in my mind, what I've been able to follow, at least on Denmark had a like general election in March, and regulators still largely think that AI is just this chatbot on the internet that students use to cheat on their homework with. And I mean, obviously that's not wrong, but they don't really see the potential. They don't see the bigger picture, or what it actually means for the future of jobs, for future of humanity, what intelligence means in the future, what work means, what like basically everything that defines society the way it's built today. So it's very important that they get a look into what the future will actually bring. Let me know in the comments, are you more scared or more hopeful after this recent development of Mythos? Should other AI labs follow the same playbook? I read every comment. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. That helps us a lot. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye-bye.
If this video inspired you, please like and subscribe.